Today I'm going to look at dumb animals. Not dumb animals like this cat here, dumb as in blind, deaf and dumb. But we'll get to that. The Bible does actually have something to say on dumb animals, but you wouldn't pick it up in the English translations that we have. For those of you who are unfamiliar and who clicked on the video wanting dumb animals as in actually stupid animals, this is our cat Poob, who is intelligent enough at what he needs to be. Like when he's living in Texas, he's great at hunting birds. He can hunt mice. So he's good at what he needs to be good at. But when it comes to actually being able to think his way through a problem, he's definitely a little bit dumb. For example, when he wants a door to open, he will scratch at the door. And you might think, well, that's intelligent because he's scratching at the door, wanting someone to come and open the door for him. And that would be a sign of intelligence. But that's not quite the way it works with Poob. We saw when I was trying to get hold of him to get him into his carry bag one time, we were at Ashley's dad's house, and he was evading me as I was trying to get hold of him. And he ran up to a bedroom door and started scratching on the door, even though I was the one that was pursuing him. He was scratching on the door, showing that it's not that he's trying to get me to open the door. He just thinks that if you scratch on the door, it will open. He's not able to put the two things together. There's your little dumb animal tidbit, if that is why you came to the video. But what I want to look at is a verse that from the first chapter of the Bible. It says, "And Elohim made the beast of the earth," that is Chaya Haaretz in Hebrew, "according to its kind. He made livestock," and that is Behemat, according to its kind. Meaning the. So Haaretz is the earth. Behemat just means the Behemoth, whatever a behemoth is, and we'll see what that is. "According to its kind, and all the creep on the earth." In the Torah commentary, the commentary on the book of Genesis, I wrote this. The Hebrew words here translated as beast of the earth, livestock, and all the creep on the earth give more examples of bad translations. I would prefer lives of the earth, that which speaks not, and all remes as more accurate alternatives. But perhaps you would agree that these translators, that their offerings are better or more useful. The reason that I would suggest that remes should be transliterated will be discussed later, and it's discussed in chapter 9. And I would say, if you have not read this commentary, probably about 60 to 80% of it would be things that I have never written about or discussed in a Torah portion before. So it's well worth you getting a copy. No one took us up on the offer that we would furnish people with copies if they wanted. I'm not sure if people don't want to get in touch and say, I can't afford a copy, because actually they can afford a copy, but maybe $40, $50 is just not money that they would want to spend on a copy. So again, if you don't want to spend that money on a copy of this for whatever reason, not simply because you can't afford it, I would say get in touch with us, and we will send a copy to the address that you provide to us. But beasts of the earth, chaya haaretz, is probably better. Lives of the earth. Chaya means life. So chaya haaretz will be lives of the earth. Haaretz being the earth. The Hebrew Behemat is what we will look at primarily in this. As I say here, that which speaks not might be a good translation. Dumb animals would be another way of translating it, because basically this word alludes to not being able to speak. We see remez is something that we will that we deal with in Torah portion Noach. Either look up that Torah portion, or like I say, get a copy of the Torah commentary. Behemat, you can see if you look at the Strong's definition down here, it says from an unused root, probably meaning to be mute, properly a dumb beast or a dumb animal. This is what Gesenius has to say about it, because you might be familiar. Behemat, almost all words that end in a are feminine. There's undoubtedly some exceptions to that, but almost all are, and Behemat is an example of a feminine word. When you pluralize something that is feminine, you give it the ending ot, and you might be familiar with the reference to Behemoth, often unhelpfully translated as hippopotamus or rhinoceros in the book of Job, but it's actually the Hebrew word Behemoth, which is the plural of Behemat. And you might ask, well, why would it be used in the singular? Why would it be used in the plural to refer to something that is singular? Behemoth is a singular animal. Well, it works just like Elohim works. You can see it says plural, this is Gesenius, beasts, quadrupeds, so that would be in its normal plural sense. But here it says plural of majesty. So in Genesis 1 25 to 26, we actually see another example of a plural of majesty. We have the verse that we just considered with the singular Behemat in, and then in the next verse, Elohim says, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness." And you might think, well, that means that there's more than one God. But actually, what it is another example of a plural being used of something that is singular, and it is in order to add majesty to it. So Elohim is spoken of as a plural, even though he is singular, and it's a way of adding esteem to something by referring to it being in the plural. In the commentary I wrote, In ancient Hebrew, there is a linguistic device called the Plural of Majesty, which is similar to the perhaps more familiar concept of the royal we, where a sovereign would refer to themselves as us or we. A famous example would be when Margaret Thatcher drew criticism for announcing, "We have become a grandmother." If when a plural noun is used, it is referring to a plural subject, one would use pluralized verbs too. And all that means is, in a sentence, you would have a subject, the one who is doing the verbs, and if the subject was plural, then all of the verbs in Hebrew would be pluralized too. So you would, when you're referring to plural subjects who are all doing a verb, then you use a plural verb. Like all of these things are all doing this thing. We might put it in English. If the subject is not in fact plural, then the associated verbs will not be pluralized. To put it another way, verbs always match their subject. The verb being plural or not informs one about whether the subject doing the verb is a plural. In the case of Elohim being the subject, we never see the verbs which he does as plurals, meaning he's singular. Understanding this, one can infer that the use of the plural must be for another reason, hence the plural of majesty explanation. It is definitely not because God himself is a plural. And it's the same with Behemoth. Behemoth is used when referring to a singular beast, when the kind of the magnitude or the majesty of the beast is being emphasized. So Behemoth is thought to be a reference to dinosaurs. Whether or not it was, the same thing would apply. It is a Behemat, but by referring to it as a Behemoth, you are adding majesty to it just by how you refer to it. Just like with Elohim, that's why we use the plural for Eloah. Eloah would be the singular version. You pluralize it when you refer to Elohim in order to add esteem, add magnitude, or add majesty to Yahovah just by referring to him in the plural. And it's the same with Behemat. So a Behemat would be, as we've seen, perhaps one that can't speak. Behemoth, when referring to the singular beast that is used in Job, is referring to a singular Behemat, which you refer to in the plural in order to add magnitude to it. So that's what you read of in the book of Job. We see that in Job 40. See now Behemoth, which is the plural of Behemat, which I made along with you. He eats grass like an ox. See now his strength is in his loins, and his power is in his stomach muscles. He bends his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are like tubes of bronze, his ribs like bars of iron. And as I mentioned, that is unhelpfully translated as hippo or rhino in certain translations. But the Hebrew word behemoth tells us a lot more. So we know what a majestic Behemat might look like. We see that in Job. But if we look through the scriptures for the word Behemat, then we can see that actually the nature of the Behemat is revealed more clearly to us. In Leviticus 20:25 it says, "And you shall make a distinction between clean beasts and unclean." So it says, "But ha-behemah ha-tahoah," the clean Behemoth, you might say. So from this we learn that Behemoth are both clean and unclean. It's not a category of animals like Remes turns out to be, which only refers to clean animals. From the book of Numbers, we learn something very interesting when we're considering Behemoth. Of all the livestock in this translation, or Mikal ha-Behemoth in the Hebrew, and what's included within all of the Behemoth, or all of the Behemoth, the donkeys. And the word there is Hamorim. As it turns out, Hamorim is actually not a term for all donkeys. It's a term that's used for male donkeys. So if male donkeys are told to us in the Torah to be Behemoth, then we can assume the female donkeys are also Behemoth. And if Behemoth or Behemoth means one who can't speak, or ones who can't speak, or dumb animals or dumb beasts, or whatever it may be, then we can assume that female donkeys are also mute, which is interesting when you consider Numbers 22:28. It says, Yehovah opened the mouth of the donkey. And the word that's used there, the donkey, ha'aton, is the word for a female donkey. But it's interesting that it says the Yehovah opened the mouth of ha'aton, because if a donkey is one who cannot speak, and we see Yehovah opening its mouth, we're not going to be given a detailed explanation of exactly what's going on there, but it does give us a little bit of insight into the Behemoth or the Behemoth, that perhaps its mouth can be open. So those animals that cannot speak, Yehovah can open their mouth, perhaps. I just thought that was interesting. It's not going to have any great theological impact on your lives or your walk with Yehovah, but it does give you a little bit of insight into just how much we can miss just by going on the English translations of the scriptures. I would encourage you all to learn Hebrew. Like the Hebrew that I know is really, really basic level stuff. It didn't take me very long, maybe 2 weeks, to learn enough Hebrew to be useful in understanding and translating the scriptures. So don't think of it as something that is just afar off and too difficult for you to be able to do. Hebrew is actually quite an easy language, and by appreciating the scriptures in the original language, you can get an awful lot more out of them. Yahovah willing, I will see you next week.